This programme was produced at and first aired on MPR, Manawatu People's Radio, with support from New Zealand On Air. Ka pai Irarangi Tamotu, MPR.
Kia ora and welcome to Reserved Recommendations, a show about problematic faves, great trash, difficult art, and our complex relationship with art and entertainment. My name's Hugh, I'm the host, and I'd like to put in a very mild content warning for this show as a whole. Sometimes our recommendations on this show are reserved just because the thing that we're discussing is in some way not good. But sometimes there are aspects to the art or artist that may be confronting for some people. Read the episode descriptions for more information and do be aware of your listening environment. Hello and welcome again to Reserved Recommendations. This is a radio show and podcast about great trash, problematic faves, and difficult relationships with art and culture. I am joined today by Katherine Beresford. It gives me great pleasure to talk to you again after a very long time. How's it going, Katherine?
Well, very well. Well, I mean, as good as can be in this time.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on. And of course, you're in the UK at the moment, so you have a particular set of challenges that we in the Antipodes don't quite so much.
Yeah, sadly so.
I mean, always remember that the Dutch once ate their Prime Minister, so it is an option.
I would certainly one I've considered.
So, all of that aside, the thing that you decided that you wanted to talk about, which was an entirely new concept to me when I went and did a little bit of cursory research, was the idea of immersive theatre. So I guess the first question is, for people who, like me, hadn't really heard or thought about it much, is like, what is an immersive theatre? How does one? What's it for? All those kinds of things.
It was predominantly brought about by Punch Drunk, but it's been, over the past decade or so, it's become incredibly popular in Britain. It's any kind of theatre, really, where the audiences are active participants. So that could be within a game, like an escape room, or at a festival. There's a lot of performance festivals that happen, or indeed a play where they are, say, minor characters, or they have to investigate something, or things like it's anything where an audience is an active participant.
Okay, so I mean, when I was dressing up and pretending to be a vampire in rooms full of other people doing the same thing back in the late 1990s, would you class that kind of live action role playing sort of thing as kind of a related category, at least?
Related category, certainly. I mean, cosplay in itself is something different. Immersive theatre tends not to be emulating kind of other characters, like you don't get dressed up as superheroes or anything. But no, I mean, I suppose it does fall into the category. The main catalyst obviously being there for most immersive theatre, at least. There is still a storyline. There are still actors there who are facilitating the event, who are creating the story, who are the leads, so to speak.
Yeah, no, and that would be the difference between that and something like a live action role playing game where, like, everyone is pursuing their own story simultaneously and there may be some kind of overarching thing happening, but there's definitely not any kind of a main character.
Yeah. For example, one I did a few years ago was Whitechapel 1888. So it was all about like life in Whitechapel at the time of Jack the Ripper, but concentrating on the people who lived there. So I don't know if you know the history at all, but I mean, it was a very rough part of town. There was extreme poverty and gangs. So even without, the first serial killer, it was a horrible place to be. So we concentrated on that, and we had an entire town set up. So people went from 1 to 2, and in the end, it like ended up with the audience having to go around. They were split off into factions. So whether it was the vigilantes, the police, or the kind of the town folk, and in the end, they had to vote on who they thought the killer was.
I see. Yeah. So, I mean, so that does kind of like lean into the game aspect a little bit then.
Yeah, a lot. Not all of them do. Some, it's simply a case that I think my first experience with immersive theatre was many years ago. An old friend of mine took me to, it was called Fallujah. It was verbatim accounts of the siege of Fallujah during the Iraq War. And it was deeply moving, obviously, but we were kind of more just moving from room to room and listening to stories being told.
Right. Okay. Well, I guess that leads into the next question I was going to ask, which is kind of what's it for? And the answer, I guess, there is it can be a sort of a gamified thing like the Whitechapel thing that you mentioned, but it can also be a way of trying to make stuff more immediate, I guess, when you're trying to tell these kinds of stories.
Yeah, I think it can do both. Like I said, there is huge gaming aspects to any kind of immersive theatre. Obviously, people are involved, so they want to be part of the action. It removes the fourth wall, really. But sometimes it can, if someone is talking directly to you, it does add a closeness, adds an immediacy. So...
yeah, and I think, I mean, that's interesting because that plays into something that I feel like is one of the great strengths of live theatre as opposed to TV or movies. It somehow, when people are doing these things right in front of you, even if maybe the sets and the costumes and the props are less convincing than if you're watching a multi-million-dollar Hollywood production, somehow the entire thing is a lot more engaging and immediate.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly what we theatre practitioners would like to think. And I think, like having it immersive even more it brings it alive that little bit more, because you are in the action, you are part of it, you are part of the story.
Yeah, so I guess the next question then is, how have you found your experience with it? Because you mentioned that you were part of this Whitechapel show. Have you done a lot of immersive theatre?
Yeah, it's been my kind of bread and butter for the last few years. I've worked in festivals. I've worked for several kind of escape room gaming companies. I've done, walkabouts at parties as well. So I have done quite a lot of it, really.
So that sounds... yeah, that sounds like it's kind of a fairly enormous industry, at least in the UK then.
It is. It definitely is. So I've been very lucky for the past few years that I have managed to survive on acting alone. The big question is after Corona, what is going to happen to the industry? There have been several meetings by several of the prominent practitioners in the industry in London. There've been Zoom meetings because obviously, social distancing and everything is a lot harder if people are actually in the action. I mean, theatre itself is like, it's a big worry, but yeah, the immersive industry is.
Yeah, also... I mean, it packing people into boxes is going to be a problem for a while, I imagine. But I mean, I went and saw the Summer Shakespeare production back in when it was summer here in Palmy, and I think that something like that would be quite manageable within COVID because or physical distancing conditions, because while it was done kind of nearly in the round, you were a good 3 3 meters or so away from the actors at all times. So, if you were able to space the audience, that would be quite doable. But if you're having people walk through and have conversations, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I know that there's an immersive Great Gatsby that's been running for a couple of years, and that is apparently set to reopen in September, I believe. So I'm not entirely sure how they plan to do it. I just saw the announcement that they were planning to do it. So I'm not 100% sure how it's going to work. But, obviously if they can do it, and their show is massive, then hopefully the smaller venues will be able to as well. And immersive theatre was, in a way, born out of the last recession. A lot of people wanted to stay local to support local businesses and do that. So they would set up escape rooms and other things inside kind of above pubs. So,
right. Yeah, that makes sense because it's something where you can use, theatre skills and which are very portable. And, I've never been through an escape room, but I imagine that you don't have to be super elaborate about your set dressing and the like. So you're not spending thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds on setting this thing up.
I mean, certain ones can. There are some amazingly well-designed escape rooms I'm lucky enough to be part of, but there are others that are very basic. And I mean, obviously they were born very basic. It was a guy in a room with a couple of kind of cheap puzzles.
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe this is a good place, I guess, to talk a little bit about the history of immersive theatre and where it comes from. I had a look at some stuff about the Boomtown Festival. I also looked at Punch Drunk, but the thing about Punch Drunk is it seems to have grown and turned into so many things at once that it's a bit kind of confusing to keep track of if you're not already familiar with it.
Yeah, Punch Drunk is one of those things that kind of went from being small to just exploding across the world. Sorry. Yeah?
They seemed like they were trying to be like sort of almost therapeutic in some of their applications as well.
Some are certainly. I mean, theatre has been used as a kind of a therapy technique for decades, and Punch Drunk have certainly jumped on to that bandwagon. And I jumped onto the bandwagon's a little, not the words I mean. But they've certainly taken that approach rather in a lot of what they do. And they are, they're known for being the best. So, yeah, I say good on them for doing that. If the best immersive company in the world wants to do it to help people.
Yeah, no, that's a very worthy thing to do. And as you say, theatre can be very powerful in that way. I think because of the immediacy and the ability to kind of take from people and reflect back to them.
Yes.
So this is reserved recommendations, and as part of that, it's traditional that there are reservations. It sounds so far like this is an incredibly positive thing that you're really pleased to be part of. I mean, what are your reservations with it?
I mean, my reservations, like I said, my reservations now are very much what is going to happen with Corona, because the entire industry is going to need to change. And I'm not sure how that change is going to be brought about.
Yeah, that is a worry. And I guess one of the things that I saw in terms of criticism of immersive theatre as a practice were people who had concerns about safety and conditions for actors, basically, about people being put in situations where they had to interact with people who might not be in their best mind, and there were concerns about people being groped or being confronted by punters or the like, and people being insufficiently careful about minding their distances seems like an extra layer of that sort of stuff.
It certainly can be. I do know of people who have been inappropriately touched. And I've heard stories about some pretty serious things that have happened. It is a worry. There is, since those things have happened, there has been quite an extensive kind of safeguarding program that has been brought in. I have seen it. I've seen it used. In one production, we had, actually in several productions, we've had directors walking around in costume as well, just kind of being a background character, but mostly just watching out for anything that goes wrong. And I've seen people being removed. But there is a very, very good ethos to a company called Dank Parish, who do a lot at Boomtown. They do Peaky Blinders Festival, and as the show doesn't have to go on. If you are unsafe, if you are feeling intimidated, you can walk off, you can leave. Your safety is more important than anything else.
That's really good.
Don't be a dick, which is also very good. But
yeah. I mean, that's really good to hear, because, I mean, one of the things that I remember getting drummed into my head over and over and over again when you and I were mere teenage drama kiddies was this idea that the show must go on. And in retrospect, that was perhaps not the most healthy thing, or given from the most healthy place.
Yeah, I mean, it's been the kind of ethos of the theatre for such a long time, but especially when you are in an immersive situation, and for things like Boomtown, it's a big music festival, but also 2,000 theatrical performers, but they're interacting with a lot of like 20-year-olds on ketamine, so it's not always safe. You are always going to get dicks, and you have to have a way to keep yourself safe. I personally, last year, I had a couple of people say things that weren't cool, but I had another guy, one of my friends was punched in the face.
Jeez.
Not hard, but enough. And so he walked off and sat up the back for a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. So, I mean, I guess then the question is that, because, I mean, we've talked about how some of these companies are very good at this stuff. Do you feel like with the kind of massive surge in popularity that this has got as a form, that everyone is being that careful, or I guess what I'm guessing at is that when something becomes super popular, that's when, unless something's very well regulated, you get like shady characters coming in around the edges to try and capitalize on it without doing their due diligence.
I suspect there is. I am fortunate that I've never had to deal with it. But I would not be surprised. However, the industry is, certainly in London, is fairly close-knit. So if you were, to have someone dodgy, they would probably know someone who knew, like, it would get back, and it would be a case where you would not work again. But That being said, it could be, actually, I tell a lie, I do know, I have a friend who worked for an American show, an immersive kind of zombie thing, and they had a lot of issues. They weren't paid, the safety checks weren't done, and then the whole thing shut down. They ended up having to, they had to get equity involved and take them to court. So that is, but this is someone who they say he never will, but apparently he's got, you know, other companies, so we'll probably try again. But it was a massive disaster, and I was going to go with my friend to the audition, but I had something on, and so I couldn't. But I knew one of the casting directors, and I messaged her and I said, look, I'm really interested in being involved, but I can't make the audition. And she said, you know, I would 100% recommend you, but I'm not involved with the production side. It's just casting. And to be honest, I'm telling everyone I know not to get involved at the beginning until they know what it's like. Then she got pregnant and had nothing to do with it. But yeah, as it turned out, she was very right. So
yeah, I think entertainment as a whole is very much one of those businesses that works on social connections. So you do need to make sure that you are working with people that you trust.
No, absolutely. It's very important with any industry and with anything in the theatre, but with immersive, definitely there is the element of, I don't want to say fear, but
maybe vulnerability in the sense that you are putting yourself, you know, within easy access to people without necessarily having the best ability to gauge them in advance.
Yeah, no, absolutely, 100%.
All right. Well, we might take a halfway break at this point and come back and continue this conversation in a second.
Perfect.
Support this show and others like it by giving a donation. For more information, go to www.mpr.nz/donate. If you're a fan of NPR, listening to our podcasts and live stream has never been easier. Just search for accessmedia.nz on the App Store or Google Play and download the app with the kiwi fruit logo. Once you've got it, pick Manawatu People's Radio from the list of stations and go find your new favourite show.
And we are back. You're on Reserved Recommendations, a radio show and podcast on Manawatu People's Radio Te Reo Irirangi o ngā tangata o Manawatu, where we talk about things that we like but would not necessarily recommend to a complete stranger whose tastes we did not know. And I am talking to Katherine Beresford about the fascinating field of immersive theatre. Which is something that you've worked in for how long in London now?
I did own bits of it for about 7 years, but solidly for the last 4, I've been working in it.
And have you seen it change over the course of that time? And is there a different focus in terms of the kind of stuff that people are wanting to do?
I think it's not so much a change, but it's got bigger. Some more ideas are out there. So it started off, you know, quite narrow, and now, yeah, they've got immersive everything. Like I said, they've got immersive Great Gatsby. They've got, obviously they have secret cinema every year. They've got witness for the prosecution. Like, it's just getting so many different things.
So what's secret cinema?
Oh, secret cinema is basically, there is they take an iconic film or sometimes TV series and they create an entire world around it. And then after a few hours of you mulling about, you go and you can watch the film. Or in the case of the last one I saw, they just had a big kind of theatrical ending. But yeah, you go around, talk to characters, there are missions. Yeah, the last one I went to was Stranger Things.
Oh, right. Yep.
I actually went to the industry kind of soft opening for it. So I think most of the night was spent going, oh, hi. Because everyone was in immersive theatre who was there, which also meant that everyone did get really dressed up and did go in for the games and the characters and all of this, which was a lot of fun. And before that was the one I saw was Blade Runner.
Oh, very fancy.
Yes, a lot of fun. I found myself not doing any of the challenges, but just wandering around the world.
Yeah, you could spend a lot of time wandering around just looking at bits of Blade Runner, I feel like.
Yeah, oh, definitely.
So another potential snag occurs to me, which is, I guess, that if I go to an ordinary play, I've just kind of signed up to sit in the theatre and watch stuff happen. But I mean, if I'm going to get the most out of this sort of thing that you're describing, there's a significant kind of extra buy-in from the audience's perspective. Like, I have to be kind of prepared to participate in the spirit of the thing in order for it to work properly. Is that like an issue that you have?
Yes, it can be. Obviously, it's a lot more fun if you participate. And as an audience member, you get more out of it. But yeah, sometimes you do face resistance of people who don't want to be involved, don't want to be spoken to, and kind of loiter around the back of the crowds. And it's not ideal.
I mean, it seems like it would be a drain on your energy, amongst other things.
Yeah, it also, I think, diminishes from other people who were there. Like, there's some people get really into it. And obviously, if those who aren't can sometimes bring a downer on other people.
So would you say that it would be in some ways easier to manage the smaller scale kinds of things then? Because I guess it seems to me that if you're talking about a music festival where you're dealing with thousands of people at once, you know, your chance of any person at random not being into it or engaging with it on an unhelpful level seems like it would be higher.
Granted, but then there's more people, so you're possibly the people who aren't interested are likely to be kind of drowned out by those who do. The big thing about music festivals, obviously, is you'll get people who just keep talking to you like you're a person and not realize that you're in character.
Yes, and depending on how weird the characters are, that could be more or less surreal, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like I said, there are a lot of people who take illicit substances at these things, so they probably
drugs
don't
at music festivals.
I know.
I'd never believe
shocking.
it. Yeah, no, I can imagine. So, I guess, do you feel like this is something that's employing a lot of actors who kind of want to be working as actors, and this is the way that they can do it? Like, is it soaking up a lot of people who would otherwise be trying to get other acting jobs?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is certainly sustaining a lot of, well, my friends' acting careers. It certainly has done mine. It is, like I said, with this kind of new wave of popularity, it is big business, and also it takes a certain type of actor as well. Obviously, improvisation is the most important thing, but also the ability to go up to people and engage, and not everyone can do that.
No, it's very different from standing in a space and saying your bit and then wandering off and someone else comes on and says their bit, for sure.
Yeah. It's yeah, and obviously, as we said, like, things are more likely to go wrong. So you kind of you have to factor that in, and you have to be able to cope with it. And personally, for me, I found that the way I deal with it is my characters all become very alpha. And I think that's kind of a subconscious way of me as an actor creating these roles that need. So I'm self-reliant when it comes to audience management.
Yeah, that's very interesting, because I always felt like even in ordinary theatre, like a character is kind of a shield, you know. It's much easier for me to go and stand and do a thing in character than it is for me to just go and give a speech to a room full of people.
Very much. So, I mean, in that way, you've still got the character of the shield. You just have to very much be completely engaged in it. And there is, like, you really feel some, you know, you really feel as that character. And if that character is in danger, you feel scared.
Yeah, I bet. And I mean, if I may be permitted to get a little bit airy-fairy for a moment, I guess this is where the useful potential for this, or the good potential for this, or the kind of transformative potential for this veers off into magic a little bit. Like, you know, getting people to embody characters so that people can share in the experience of being around these very powerful characters and gain whatever benefit that gives them. That's like describing the religious practice of voodoo and all of its derivative religions.
Yeah, I suppose I've never thought about it like that. No, you're right. It's very much, it is certainly a type of magic, and it is very transformative, which I think is, for me, it's kind of why I started acting. I just, you know, I want to go live in fantasy land, and ideally not have someone yell cut every 10 minutes, less, but actually be completely immersed in this world.
Yeah, and to have the opportunity to be these different kinds of people reasonably completely, even if they're a kind of person you might not want to be in the long run.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I like to, we're not quite at the end yet, but I like to finish these things off, and I feel like now is as good a time to start heading in that direction as any. I like to finish these things off by kind of suggesting extra reading or viewing or listening or things that people could go and look at. Like, do you have things that would be like internationally accessible? Because most of the people who listen to this are probably going to be in New Zealand.
Probably. Internationally accessible.
I mean, maybe not performances, but like, are there people who talk about this in a useful and interesting way, or resources that people could find?
A lot of YouTube does a lot of kind of videos and previews of different shows.
All right, so that would be a good place to go and just kind of put in immersive theatre and see what you find, and that'll give you a sense of whether it's for you and what might be around in your general area.
Yeah, I also know that New Zealand is starting to gain some more of it. I know my nephew did some at drama school in Wellington.
Oh, that's cool.
So it is coming to New Zealand slowly.
And actually, now I think about it, I've not seen anything promoted as immersive theatre, but I have seen kind of more mainstream theatre drift in that direction. So there was a production of Faulty Towers put on by the local repertory theatre people, where they set out tables, and so they had the action happening amongst the audience at tables like that.
That is something that I'm involved with as well. I mean, that I know that there have been British companies that have travelled to New Zealand to do that, to do the comedy dining aspect. So yeah, I mean, like I said, it comes in lots of different forms.
Yeah, the other thing I was going to mention actually is there's a band in Dunedin called the Mentalist Collective, who it's not theatre, but they do immersive music. So it's a thing that they only do at festivals because that's where you have a crowd who will kind of buy into it. But they get people in a room blindfolded and then they just kind of wander around them and play the songs that they would play at a gig instead of doing that from a stage.
I've heard of the Mentalist Collective. I didn't realise what they did exactly.
Oh, well, I mean, a lot of the time they're just a band, but this is a special extra thing that they do at festivals, which is kind of take that approach, but to acoustic music.
Yeah, no, that sounds awesome. I'm going to have to double check, like have a look on my Facebook because, yeah, I believe I'm following them.
They're neat. If people like the idea of being surrounded by things that are going on, then I would recommend checking them out. Well, look, thank you very much for talking to me this morning for you. This is the point at which I get you to plug your shit or any shit that you're interested in people going and supporting. Do you have an online presence that people should go and look at?
If you put in my name, Katherine Beresford, I will come up with the first search is me. At the moment, like I said, I am not currently doing. Actually, that is a massive lie. I am doing Zoom murder mysteries each weekend.
Currently. Well, there's another avenue for something approaching immersive theatre in the age of physical distancing.
Exactly. It's called The Whodunit. Check them out. Do jump on it. Will be morning time in New Zealand, but if you fancy an early morning murder mystery.
It sounds like a very energizing way to start the day.
Absolutely. Find a killer, have a laugh. Yeah, I've only just started doing those. So other than that, obviously in the time of Corona, we are unfortunately still heavily affected by it here in the UK. I am doing that. So yeah, The Whodunit, give them a check out. But I would also suggest that when theatres and everything do start opening up in New Zealand, that go along, support them. Yeah. Make sure the arts keep running during these kind of unprecedented times.
Well, we're supposed to go down to level 1, which is as close to normal as we get for a while, at midnight tonight, as we record this, which is Tuesday. So by the time that anyone actually hears this, it will have been that way for like 2 days. So, go do things, people.
Yeah,
go do things locally.
Go do things locally. Support local artists, musicians, theatre practitioners. Yeah, I know Arden's given a lot of money to the arts, which is an incredible thing. Yeah, make it worth it.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for talking this evening.
Not a problem at all.
You've been listening to Reserved Recommendations, a radio show and podcast from Manawatu People's Radio, Te Reo Irirangi o ngā tangata o Manawatu. The show is produced and presented by me, Hugh Dingwall, and I also composed our theme music. It's called Sack Jazz, and you can find it at wolfboy.bandcamp.com. You can find me on the internet at Objective Realty on Twitter, and you can find the show on Facebook under Reserved Recommendations. If you've got a reserved recommendation of your own, feel free to pitch it to me in either of those two places. And if you enjoyed the show, why not go ahead and recommend it to a friend? You can find past episodes at www.mpr.nz/show/reserved on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. And remember, Manawatu People's Radio is a non-profit radio station. If you enjoy this or any of their other fine audio programming, why not fling them a couple of dollars? Go to mpr.nz/donate for more information.